Alright. Phone died. Got it plugged into the car right now. So now it's time for Blue Book Part 2. So as I was describing, let me see if I can figure out where I left off. Right here. This graph right here. So on the y-axis, you've got likelihood of a policy passing. On the x, public support at 0. In an ideal democracy, there would be a 0% chance passing. And at 100% support, there would be a 100% chance of the policy passing. Now, that line would be straight, so at 50 and 50, they would have a 50% chance of passing. I'm just gonna have to hold on to the camera because the cord makes it inconvenient. After analyzing tens of thousands of public policy preference polls from the last few decades and weighing it against real policy outcomes, Cambridge found the real graph looks more like this. As you can see, that's a straight line. So if a policy has 100% support, it's got a 30% chance of passing, and that's the same all the way down to 0. So public policy, no matter how popular or unpopular a policy is, it has about the same 30% chance possibility of getting passed in Congress. Our opinion has absolutely no impact on political policy preferences. That's right. Whether a bill had 0 or 100% public support, or anything in between, it had the same 30% chance of passing. How is this possible? What crime has been done to allow this? I lied to you by omission. That's a graph representing the opinions of the bottom 90% of wage earners. The top 10% have a graph that looks more like this, which looks a lot closer to the first one. At 0% support in the top 10% of wage earners, there is a 0% chance of it passing, and at 100%, it's about 60%. So what we truly have is a democracy of the rich. That's right. A bill with 0% wealthy support has no chance in hell of passing. From there, it looks like a lot closer to the graph of a perfect democratic graph, with a pattern of... wait. Whatever. That part doesn't matter, I already said it. With this in mind, it is clear that the only democracy in America is reserved for the wealthy. Not all the people are equally represented. 2. A good educational system. K-12 education simply lacks practical use. You don't learn how to properly cook, clean, do any job properly, fully understand computers. There is no deep philosophy, no explanation of finances or credit, and no clear path to your place in the world. That is all reserved for college, where you must either bankrupt your family or outcompete millions of others frantic to earn scholarships. Sports, academics, community events, clubs, you must learn multiple languages and find something uniquely terrible in your own life to stand out from the crowd and leap that financial firewall. Because of this, college is seen as an investment to stand out in the job market, instead of being the essence of what education is. Meant to be developing yourself as an honest, open, deep-thinking person in our community. College should be viewed as a developmental tool for all people, a means for the old and wise to discuss life with the young and naive. Our culture should treat education as a necessity, and not punish those who seek it. College debt is trillions and trillions of dollars, and many will never be able to pay that debt. What is taught in K-12 education is basic math, sciences, and a skewed American history, which forgets to mention every American atrocity and paints us to be the most enlightened, moral, democratic, and fair country since the dawn of time. You'll find nothing, literally nothing, about post-1980s American politics taught in our school system. What is taught paints Nixon as the only bad guy in a group of extraordinary men. By my tone, you may be able to deduce that I don't agree with this portrait of American history. For a reference of modern American war crimes, watch Noam Chomsky's 12-minute video on how the Nuremberg Tribunal laws were applied to all U.S. presidents. We would have seen every single one hang by the neck. So, without my stuttery reading, what I'm saying is if the Nuremberg Tribunal laws were applied to all U.S. presidents, they would all be executed because they're all war criminals. American education gets a C+ at best, and that's generous. 3. Any individual can run, despite party affiliation. In America, we have a two-party system, obviously the two being Republicans and Democrats. That doesn't mean others don't exist. DSA, Independents, Green Party, Libertarians. But it does mean that the system is massively biased towards those running in an established party. You can also run within established parties, no matter what your personal party platform is, but the party will choose an endorsed candidate in any race. Both parties receive financial support from the same institutions. Oil and gas, weapons manufacturers, pharmaceutical drug companies, insurance industries, Wall Street, the private prison industry, and outsourcing private interests can be found contributing to the established candidates for both parties. So right here I have an R and an D. So the Republicans believe in outsourcing. God, my handwriting is so terrible. And they also believe in subsidies for big oil and gas. And they believe in tax breaks for the rich. Democrats believe in outsourcing. They believe in rich people tax breaks. And they believe in subsidies for big oil and gas companies. That's by design. They agree with each other on things that support big businesses because that's what got them into office. With the system heavily in favor of the candidate with more money and name recognition, it becomes easy for corporations to filter candidates that will trade their policy convictions for their name on a winning ticket. Also, due to the financial pressure applied to both parties, you find a lot of overlap in ideology between the two, creating a one-party platform on issues like healthcare, endless war, deregulation of financial institutions, tax cuts for the wealthy, strict enforcement of laws to populate the prison system, open outsourcing of American jobs, support for predatory credit lenders, and privatization of public industry. The only disagreement on these issues is minimal and a farce, intended to give the impression of hatred between the parties, while they turn their backs and do the same thing anyways. 4. Open discussion of issues. What is the modern public square? Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and other public platforms are the only place for people to spread their opinions easily. We're losing ground quickly here as well, with a legal war on fake news and misinformation quickly leading to a massive push by advertisers to ban, deplatform, and defund anybody with a controversial opinion. This is disastrous for our public discourse, and since we must filter this discourse through private companies, we see a similar filtration effect to what we discussed with cancel culture. Of course, Facebook and Twitter will never ban a political opinion that favors their personal interest. The ability to ban controversial opinions cripples our discourse and leaves us a squeaky clean, friendly, smiley, toothless public conversation. 5. An honest news media. All major news media is privately owned. Due to the for-profit structure and the direct filtration process used by elite editors, all American news media is designed to get your eyes on the screen no matter what. This is accomplished by creating a pro-wrestling style battle between the left and right. I put those in quotations because every major network is reliant on big money advertisers and owned by big business interests. This big business reliance leads to a two-layer filtration process of opinions. The hiring process is most effective, as only establishment-friendly actors willing to read off a script will get a job on most major news networks. If an honest journalist somehow slips into a major news spot, chances are a single controversial opinion will result in an advertisement boycott and lose that journalist his platform. It's the media's job to hold our politicians' feet to the fire, ripping uncomfortable truths from them by asking difficult questions and expecting difficult answers. The politicians are meant to be adversarial with the media, one fighting to deceive us and blind us to their mistakes and disloyalty, the other our insurgents for the truth, willing to put themselves in any danger to shine light on the evils of our world. This is the most grotesque failure of our media, being completely neutered in its relationship with our politics. News networks rely on access to politicians, and this access is leveraged to put politicians in interviews with friendly faces. Fox News, for example, has an orthodoxic right-wing structure where nearly every host holds Republican viewpoints. Due to this right-wing bias, Republican politicians will tend to only accept public appearance when interviewed by someone who agrees with their viewpoint, robbing us of the tough questioning we deserve. The same is true for the Democratic Party on CNN and MSNBC. Andrew Cuomo, Democratic governor of New York, literally has spent hours being interviewed by his younger brother Chris on CNN. On top of this political bias, these high-level newsmen are all multimillionaires, shielding them from the experience of common Americans. This is also true of our politicians themselves, meaning a TV interview is likely two multimillionaires both reading a pre-written script, not with the intent to inform you, but instead with the intent to redirect your anger away from elites like them and instead towards your fellow working Americans. Every prominent issue in America is directly attributable to the opposing party according to these news networks, and you can be sure they will divide us on every other line as well. Our economy sucks because of boomers. Our culture sucks because of lazy blacks. Millennials are crybabies. Whites are holding minorities down. Men want to steal your abortion rights. Women want special treatment. Mexicans will steal your jobs. Muslims want us all dead. Bullshit. These opinions, in every case, is held by a vast minority of Americans, and support only grows for each idea because of the brutal propaganda pushed by our news media. If we're busy fighting each other, we're too distracted to pay attention to those actually able to participate in our democracy, namely the rich and elites. 6. The Constitution must be upheld. Let's go through each of our rights outlined by the Bill of Rights in our Constitution. 1. Congress shall make no law representing an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people to peacefully assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. 2. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. 3. I don't want to waste space, so I'll skip those rights being infringed. So I'll skip to those rights being infringed specifically. 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizure shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. 6. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. of the state and district wherein the crime has been committed, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witness against him, to have a compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for defense. I need a second. I need to smoke. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. There are many more amendments than this, and many more infringements, but for the sake of convenience, we'll stick with these. 1. The recent riots have been revealing in respect to the current state of our First Amendment rights. In Oregon, unmarked federal agents were able to arrest peaceful protesters with no probable cause. They have also been using riot police and militant authorities to disband peaceful protests all over the country. Protests may become violent, at which point a response is reasonable, but even a protest of 10 million angry Americans must be allowed to preserve the sanctity of our democracy. 2. I've evolved significantly on the Second Amendment over time. Tyranny is a constant threat our people must be able to defend ourselves from. Our military is exactly that, a military. According to Sun Tzu, the most important trait of a successful military is discipline. We have the greatest military since the Mongolian Empire, and we accomplish this by enforcing a strict regime which eliminates the sense of self in a soldier. The mistakes of one soldier will result in the punishment of the group. A soldier's schedule is strictly regulated, and alone time is virtually non-existent. They put our soldiers through hell in boot camp and specialized training with two purposes. One, to train the efficiency and toughness required for battle, and one, to put them through common pain, which bonds them in a brotherly way. This is not a criticism. In fact, the opposite. I wouldn't change a thing, but it creates a specific type of individual, an order follower. The military has been turned on our people before, and in the event of a violent revolution, the likes of the foundation of our country would absolutely be used the same way. We must ensure the loyalty of our soldiers to our people, not our government, and if they were turned against us, we must have the means to fight back. In the hands of a well-regulated citizen militia, we the people should be allowed the same access to military-level weaponry, and as individuals, we must be allowed to bear reasonable arms, despite the danger of the mentally unstable. A school shooter poses a threat that doesn't even register on the same scale as the most dangerous military empire of the world has ever seen. We must have the strength to accept the consequences of self-protection. Four, the right from unreasonable search and seizure. The Fourth Amendment has been damaged worse than all the rest combined. Our digital records are completely public, accessible to both Silicon Valley corporations and the US government with no warrant. The NSA has the legal authority to spy on you directly, using our technology as a universal wiretap and keeping all our data on a mass database. In order to restore the Fourth Amendment, we must repeal the Patriot Act, which established this system of mass surveillance, and strictly regulate our tech industries to protect our personal information. 6 and 8. The poor cannot afford bail. With this, they can be arrested, locked up, and have their trial postponed indefinitely. We have people who have been imprisoned for months or years with no trial due to our broken bail system. Our public defendants are also entirely understaffed or underfunded. I remember hearing a story of public defendants being so overbooked they spend as little as 7 minutes on a case. This means if you can't afford a lawyer in the wrong place, you'll most likely face a trial with a disastrously underprepared defense, most likely ending in a shitty plea deal. Regardless of innocence or guilt, this means you'll likely face jail time no matter what you're arrested for, no matter if you're arrested for a crime, especially if you're poor. Our prison system is cruel and unusual at its core. Punishing criminals by forcing them to live in the open with each other. This creates a culture of abuse and violence, ripe for initiation. In a culture you end up in, whether you killed a man, raped a woman, or smoked a joint. Non-violent criminal is a term that hurts my heart. To steal the freedom of a man who's hurt nobody is cruel and unusual on its face. But to put him in a cage with violent criminals is nearly unforgivable. We must improve our prison system to fit modern standards and morality. 7. Minority rights. Okay, let's say we fix all of this. Money in politics, our education system produces fully functional, job-ready democratic citizens by age 18. Any member of my political affiliation gets equal representation and time to speak to the people. The news media outgrows CNN and Fox News, creating an equal opportunity online media environment and reinvigorates American journalism. And constitutional rights are finally upheld. How do we keep our democracy moral? Remember, Jim Crow and slavery both would have had majority support at the time, and even today our people may not always believe in what's best for our minorities. This is the purpose of the courts, which have been consumed by the same toxic politics that took our Congress and executives. It is actually the Supreme Court which established money in politics as a form of free speech. There is no trump card on the Supreme Court, so we must use dirty political tactics as a people to change this. Only the full force of Congress and the President can change the letter of the constitutional, I don't know what that says. So we must push for clean politics with overwhelming force. We must be unanimous as a people to make this change. 8. No government secrets. Ha ha ha, what a joke. Insert support for whistleblowers here. Top secret is the term used for everything from nuclear launch codes, which must be protected, to low-level embarrassing mistakes made by our government and military, which should not be protected. 9. I already talked about 9. So with all of this in mind, would you give America an A+ in democracy? It seems like 99% of us do. So this is the first illusion which must be broken. It's not a democracy here. And that is the end of my Blue Book. Thank you for listening. Next I'll be reading my Black Book, which is even better. So tune in for that. The Black Book's a lot shorter, but I got scared and stopped writing about a third of the way in because, you know, when you write about scary stuff, sometimes you get intimidated and you shut down and catatize. So I went into a catatonic writing state for about 2 years after writing this book because the writing of it scared me so deeply. So Black Book next. Thanks for tuning in.